Level up your horse's performance this season with choices from Purina Animal Nutrition. From Purina Ultium Competition Formula to Purina Impact Pro Performance and everything in between, Purina has the right option for your horse, including supplements like Purina Super Sport Amino Acid, Purina Amplify High Fat Supplement, and Purina Outlast Gastric Support. There are many choices for optimal nutrition when you choose Purina, all backed by science. Level up your performance this season and put Purina's research to the test. Ask for Purina at your local feed retailer today.
As you say, I was the first woman to win the NCHA Open Futurity, and there's only been another one since then, which is the gal that worked for me, my very good friend Kathy Dawn, and then I've been reserved twice since I won it. But what it did for me is just whenever you win something like that, more than anything, more than the winnings or anything else, you gain confidence, which is more important than anything. And I felt like I could ride with anybody and I could show with anybody, and that in itself was probably the greatest gift that you could get from winning something like the Futurity. And I used to get tired of people asking me, how does it feel to be a woman, or how'd you do it and all that, and I thought, I never really thought twice about the gender question, woman or man. I just thought, I wanted to be one of the best. And to be the best, you have to show against the best. And the best all happened to be men. It never really dawned on me that it was a big deal that I was winning being a woman. I always wanted to be considered a really great hand, one of the best, not one of the best women. So, but I think the confidence was the big thing, and just you could, not that I've ever relaxed. I don't think I'm relaxed now about it, because I want to win it again and again and again. But it just makes it a little bit easier to sleep at night when you know that you can win it.
I think you bring up a really good point with the questions that are asked about what's it like to be a woman that won something like that. And
yeah,
and it kind of goes back to the whole conversation that we had about like a good, a mare is just as good as a stallion, and a female rider is just as good as a male rider. And they should be compared on the same, scale, not female versus male. Like you are one of the best cutting horse trainers, not just female cutting horse trainers.
Right. And I think that in anything, when you're the first, and whether I'm they refer to me as Jackie Robinson of, cutters and all that, break the glass ceiling. I think in retrospect now, I think it was a big deal. I didn't think it was a big deal then, and I think that it's just having a focus about what you want to do, and then sacrificing whatever you have to sacrifice to get that done. And I think, a lot of women are as good. There's many, many really great women hands. And I think they have a lot of times a step on some men, not all men, some men, as being a better partner with a horse. I think they're more intuitive. I think they're more compassionate in many ways. But not, I don't want to, be a racist on the other side saying that men can't do it, because they can. There's some great male trainers, and there's great male trainers that have a tremendous amount of compassion for their horses. I just see it a lot in women too. And and our industry has evolved where we have a non-professional class, as and an amateur class, and those are dominated by women. There's more women in the amateur and the non-professional than men that are winning, for sure. And there's still some good non-pro males and non-pro and amateur, men, but there's a lot of women. And in the open, there's still way dominated by the men as far as number-wise. There's still just a few women open trainers. But, there's a lot there. I'm not saying you have to give up everything to do that, but it's taxing. The family life is taxing. The responsibilities, are all kind of askew, and you have to wear a lot of hats if you're a woman and still be a woman professional trainer. And there's some that are very successful at it and good hands coming up that are ladies. So, to get to be the starter of that, I'm happy with that. And I'm the only woman yet to win the world, to win the NCHA Open Championship title. And I think that, we'll have women win that one of these days too. But you got to be in the business a while, and that's got to be your focus in order to get to the top, as in any sport, business or sport,
Absolutely. There is a level of dedication, and I think horses, the nice thing about other sports is that you can walk away from your baseball bat at night or whatever. But, when we're done riding horses, next you got to go and take care of them, medicate them, feed them, clean stalls. You don't get to just go to your job and ride. You got to do everything else on the other end afterward.
No, and then you don't get Sundays off or Saturdays off, or, you can put the bat in the closet and take a day off, but you don't, the horse life, the ranch life, horse life, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And I'm certainly not trying to dissuade anybody from doing it, because it's the love of my life for sure. But it's, it's not for everyone. I mean, you have to be super responsible and compassionate for these animals, because they depend on you. They depend on you for their life.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you wish that you would have known when you first started that you know now? Like, what is one thing that really sticks out to you?
I wish I could. I mean, I wouldn't change much for sure. I've been one of the luckiest people in the world to get to do what I would pay somebody to get to do for my livelihood and my career, and my hobby is all, rolled into one. I would probably just want more time at this stage to keep doing it, because I think I'm smarter. I think I approach it a little bit better. I think I can get a lot of things accomplished with a little less work. And I'm riding fewer horses now too, that allows me to do that. But maybe the only regret, it's really not a regret, is just to enjoy the journey a little bit more. And that's what I always tell people, to enjoy what's going on between the shows, because, there can always be a different winner. So, the other 600 people that are at that show that day, they better be able to take something from it in order to live with it and to be okay with it. That, well, I didn't win that one. I worked my hardest. I did my best. I had the best horse, and all those things may be true, but they still don't guarantee you a win. So you have to take it, you got to be able to take it and own it. Maybe I was just probably a little bit hard on myself when I could have been a little less hard on myself. But then again, when you look at it, maybe that was what I needed to have happen at the time. Maybe that was the catalyst to make me keep going and get where I am today.
I totally get what you're saying. Whereas, you wish you weren't so hard on yourself, but also maybe that's the driving factor that helped you win, right, some of those events, is that you were determined. And when things didn't go the way that you planned, you took that energy and then, worked on it at home only to be better the next time. But I also agree with your point where we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves, because at the end of the day, we do this because we love these horses. And if that's not the reason why you're competing, then it's time to reevaluate what you're doing.
Right. And that's one factor that never was a question for me about loving the horse and appreciating the horse. And that's, why I don't treat it like a business. I treat it like it's a lifestyle for sure. And most people do, but there's a lot of people that if they don't have to ride over the weekends, they want to go golf or boat or be with their family or go on vacation or do something. Well, when I go on vacation, about 3 days I've got the heebie-jeebies. I want to get home and I want to check on Prince and check on Ruby and go for a ride. And if I've had a bad day doing whatever, when I was president of the NCHA a few years ago, there were certainly some challenging days. Well, at the end of the day in the office, if I was there all day, the first thing I do is get on my favorite horse and go for a ride. And that's still the case. So I find a lot of solace with my horses and wouldn't trade that for anything. But it, and I've had so many people tell me forever, just, you're too hard on yourself, be a little bit easier, don't take it so hard, blah, blah, blah. And I, it goes in one ear and out the other most of the time, to tell you the truth, because, I don't want to blame the horse. I want to blame myself. The horse has to do their job for sure. And I'm going to, do everything I can in order for that to happen. But at the end of the day, I've got the reins. So maybe there's something else I could be doing when I train this horse, or show him a cow, or just apply something else that I think about it a lot and always have. Just like you're teaching a human or a student something, you can just see in their eyes they're not getting it, and so you try a different approach, and then all of a sudden you see the light bulb turn on, and that's what I live for when I ride the horse. I might try a different approach, and all of a sudden I feel them just open up, or, move their shoulders away. It's going to help them get across a cow a little better. So, it's all trial and error, but, you've got to be smart about developing that horse to the best of their potential, not something that you want to have happen, but they can't get there for you just because it's not their potential. You're talking about your potential, not theirs.
It's such a rewarding feeling when you are riding one and you're trying to teach them something and it clicks and it feels so good. That's such a rewarding feeling when it all comes together.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have talked a little bit about your Open World Championship, but I don't think we mentioned that you were the first rider, not just female rider, first rider to win all 4 go-rounds at that World Show. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Well, that was actually on She's a Smarty Lena, that mare I told you about, Cher. And that was really great because, I read all the books about great athletes and I love sports, obviously. But they all say in their sport, when they have one night or one season or one tournament or one something where just everything is just green lights. They've just been green lit and everything just works and they don't even think about it. It's effortlessly and they're just flying. And that's how that 4-go series was for me that year with shares. It didn't matter where I drew, what cow I cut. I cut the best cows and I picked them, but they could have easily not been the best cows, but they were. And she was flawless. And it's just like the first run, she had a really, I don't remember what I scored, but a high score enough to win the go. And you have the top 15 horses of the world there. So, it's something to win it. And I thought, wow, she was great. And then the second, I'm watching the cattle in the second go, and I start in there and just everything just falls in place. I won that one too. And I'm thinking, man, maybe I could win the next one too. Wouldn't that be great? Win the next one, then win the next one. And she was just a phenomenal mare that when I compete and when I show, you can't worry about the flaws or the deficiencies your horse might have or the negatives. I always just, when I drop my hand, it's the best horse I've ever been on in my life. I don't care what it is, because that's the way I show. That's the confidence I exude, hopefully, to the judge or judges. So when you get in a zone like that on a mare, like she was in the same zone, and a lot of times I can be in the zone and the horse is not in the zone, or vice versa, and that's happened, of course, a lot. But that particular series of shows, that World Finals, it was almost too easy.
Well, and like you had mentioned, that you're competing against the top 15, 20 horses in the world, right? And to have 4 go rounds and be consistent, not even just consistent, but to win every single one is a pretty hard challenge. And, it could be, it's so hard for a horse to be on like that every single time. And especially with so many talented horses in one arena.
It is. And again, we're talking about a partnership. So I've got to be on as well as the horse. And, she's a smarty Lena when she was just such a great mare. She was so consistent. And, when you have a mare like Cher or like Bet, in their top heydays when they were showing, they took very little prep. And they'll tell you how ready they are if you'll listen, if you'll feel for it. And I don't like Bet, and nobody ever believes this. And I'm pretty sure it's the same with Cher, but I know it is with Bet. I never practiced her. All the final shows I showed her at, where I was high scorer one year, that held for 10 or 11 years or something when I marked the 33. I never practiced her during the whole time I was in Houston. I never worked cow on her, and I never worked flag on her. I never did anything because she was so ready. She didn't need, me being redundant on her, telling her to do this. I mean, she would be insulted if I did. So I didn't. And Cher was quite the same way when she went during that set of shows or those set of go-arounds. I didn't work her. I didn't mess her mind up at all. I didn't want to make a mistake and work her the wrong way or do something that would actually not be in her best interest, because she was so sharp. I thought, I'm just going to let this go, until it doesn't go. And I think a lot of people have a hard time stepping away and letting their horses do their job, and they always they don't want to leave anything on the table. So they'll work them. And I think they work them too much where they can fatigue easy. And then you're prone to injury, but you're also prone to the horse saying, you know what, if you want to work me this hard, and this is what we do every time, then that's what I'll do. I'll just wait for you to tell me what to do. And then they're not reading the cow. So then you lose that little bit of excitement or that desire that horse has in making the proper decisions to hold that cow.
Well, like you said, there's so much that, you don't want to leave anything on the table. And so it's really easy to over practice and over drill, but it's really also important. And it sounds like you're really great at reading this with your horses, that, we can't ask 110% every time. And as we're getting ready to go to a horse show, you want them to peak at the horse show. And it sounds like you had such a great connection with these horses that you've talked about in particular, that you were able to kind of read them and know what they were doing and what, if they needed help or if they didn't, and you were able to step back and kind of let them just cruise around before they go show rather than drill. And, right. And I think that's so important.
Yeah, you can keep them fresher. An old trainer, and I don't even remember who it was, told me that one time, because I think they saw me pushing at a show when I was quite young. I'm sure I was early 20s or something, really pushing and maybe working the horse as well as showing the horse. And they said, Lindy, that if you want to last in this business, or if you want to, be one of the best, you need to learn to leave a little water in the well. And that stuck with me, and it still does. And if you pump all that water out of that horse that day in the practice pen, you're not going to have anything left when the showtime comes. I want to have plenty left when it's showtime.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, especially with how much you're asking of the animals. I mean, they are truly athletes doing it. You can't burn them out before you go in. And I think it's always interesting when you see trainers riding and, practicing their spins before they go in and all of those things, like right before. Your horse isn't going to learn that in the warm-up pen. I feel like they don't know it before they get to the show. They're not going to learn it right before they go in. But so you obviously have shown quite a bit. And so you've talked about getting yourself mentally ready and prepared so that you're on top of your game. What are some things that you do to kind of prep yourself to show to the best of your ability?
You know what I used to do, and I still do it once in a while, but I always, this is going to sound silly, but when I was younger, before I became a judge, I would read the rule book every night before I showed. I would read the rule book just to remind myself. It just kind of tuned me up. And then I try to kind of see how the run should go in my head, you know, like a lot of sports people do. I kind of try to see the run. Do I cut 2 cows? Do I cut 3 cows? And I just tell myself to really, you know, show my horse and, you know, be on my game where the last thing I want to do is inhibit my horse somehow by missing something or not riding as pure as I should ride. But, you know, I like to get on my horse before I show and just feel how they're feeling and just kind of reaffirm that stop and let them know I'm going to use my legs, press them off a little bit. But mostly I just work on trying to be in the moment and try to do my job as I step down towards that herd.
We've talked quite a bit about some of the mares that you've shown and some of the homegrown horses that you've shown. Was breeding something that was always an interest to you, or how did you get into the breeding side of it? And then, I mean, it's got to be such a rewarding feeling to have like shown these mares and then have their offspring and show them and then have their offspring. And, you know, that's got to be a really special feeling that not many people get to say they've shown, you know, the stud or the mare and then their offspring at the same competitions.
Right. And that's so true. And that's one of I think the most rewarding thing for me too is, but it's a little selfish because like a great horse, like Bet, I mean, I wanted to breed her because I wanted another Bet. You know, she was too good. And the same with Cher. So it was just like, that would give me a dynamite pool to pull from because of those mares' genetics to have, you know, some potential superstars that had their traits. And then being the scientist I am, it was always intriguing to me to see the variables. So like, you know, things that were a little different about this colt by, let's say, by Smart Little Lena out of Bet, how did it differ from Bet itself? So do you attribute that all to the stallion? Do you attribute half of it to the stallion? And then it would also give me a leg up on how to train that horse because I trained the mothers. But the main reason was I didn't want that experience with those mares to end. So I kept living more. I kept living through the babies. I would live through them to have their babies. So it was still like having a piece of Bet or having a piece of Cher or having a piece of Rita's stylish Bet. Llewellyn's cat, Lou, was just a wonderful, wonderful mare with a great maternal side. And it isn't just them; it's their mothers and grandmothers that all were. You know, I studied genetics, of course, in school, but you can only get so much out of a book. The rest of it is you've got to, you know what nicks, know what mare will cross with what stallion the best. And a lot of that is you can't get by just looking at genetics. It's, you know, and luckily I train and ride too, so I'm not a breeder just trying to figure it out without having that skill or having that experience of riding the mare, or the mom, or the grandma, or the great grandma, which I have. But it's really fun to get to ride something that's related to those great mares because there's, you know, there's a certain amount of traits that keep going through the generations that are the best to me ever.
What traits are you seeing in some of the offspring that are really just, you know, that you're really loving?
You know, they're cowy. Well, I would say first, they're cowy, they're smart, trainable horses. They're out of great athletes. So the athleticism is there. Sometimes not quite as much because you've diluted it with a stallion. And sometimes the stallion has added some really good stuff to those babies. Like Smooth as a Cat for instance, Tina, or her real name, Betsy Smooth, I crossed Bet with Smoothest Cat, and Smoothest Cat's a great sire. But what he's known for is really a great temperament and very trainable colts. And Tina was extremely trainable and wanted to be a great horse, wanted to be a good horse, where her mother didn't. Like I said, her mother was kind of, iffy and come and go. And, her mother had a real attitude till she was 5. And that I attribute to the Freckles Playboy, which are notoriously known for late bloomers, great open horses, but not very good age-dependent horses. It took them a while to decide they wanted to do it. And that was certainly Beth's MO. But Tina, Betsy Smoothest Cat really helped Beth because, I was reserve on her. I drew first in the futurity and was still reserve, which is pretty unique because she was so trainable and easy to get along with and honest, where Beth, was not easy to get along with all the time until she was 5. And then she was phenomenal, but not at first.
Do you find yourself when you're riding their offspring, do you ever like, that's just like your mom, or are you looking for those things when you're riding them?
Totally, all the time. I want to feel it, and probably sometimes I look for it, and okay, well, I used to do this with her mother. I want to see what she does now. Or I used to do this with that colt or her full brother. This didn't work on him. He wasn't that good doing this, but maybe she will be. And so, yeah, I love studying the similarities or the non-similarities between, full siblings as well as, line breeding or through the mothers.
I love hearing all of that. And it's really cool listening to you talk about this, especially with your science background, because I think you bring such a different element to the table when it comes to how you're looking at genetics and how you're deciding to go through with these kinds of things. Do you find that you refer back to your background in that science aspect to kind of help guide you in your future crosses?
I think definitely it was an asset having that much schooling in genetics and also in just, I taught a little bit. So, and just myself being a student, and I wasn't the best student for a long time. I kind of changed myself a little bit and became a better student, but I had to work at it. I mean, it didn't come completely naturally. So I think, and I think my education really helped in that I see each horse as an individual, not the same, and that they all have certain, potentials. And to me, I pride myself in trying to train each horse to its potential, not my potential, or not my idea of what it should be. But I kind of let them show me what they can do. But my education aspect, I think, has really helped with conditioning and keeping a horse in shape and not overdoing it where I have potential for injury or fatigue, which usually injury follows, as I said, and then you're out. Then you're fixing problems that you yourself created, and those all could have been prevented. Maybe 3 5-minute sessions is better than 1 15-minute session. Things like that you learn over the years to train a little smarter.
It's really cool to hear because I've never really done any kind of breeding. It's not something that I've ever been, involved with. But it sounds like with all of your schooling, though, it also helps set you up to be the horse trainer that you are today. And I think we're always so worried about like, who did you ride under? Who did you, this or that? But there's so much more to horse training than being on the back of the horse. And it sounds like you took a lot of lessons from that background and was able to apply it to your everyday life.
Yeah. And I know I'm known for, in a good way, but I mean, I'm known for being very anal as far as taking care of the horses and washing them off and how you wash them. And my feeding program is fantastic, and the horses look good. They always look good. I like that. I don't ever want to see a horse's ribs or see them, out of air because they don't have the nutrients in them to keep them in good shape. So that's a big part of my program is nutrition. And obviously Purina and I have been partners a long time. And I think they're the superior feed, and I rely on them and their brains to make sure I'm covering all the bases on my horses. So it's, I don't mind going to the source if I need some help on a certain horse or a certain topic, something that it's not looking, the eye test is not just quite an A and I want it to be an A. So I do that, and I use my vets just like the same, and I make suggestions to them, and because they want to hear my suggestions because of my plethora of experience with different horses and how they move and how they feel. I try to pick up something way before it manifests into a real problem.
Back to us talking a little bit about having that connection with that horse and like just even like the feeding, making sure they get bathed a certain way, all these things kind of help form that relationship that you really need to truly be partners with that horse. Because now every little aspect of that horse, whether it's how he eats, what he's doing in a stall at 7 p.m. at night every day, or, all these things are just as important as the actual training on their back, doing the flag work, doing the cattle work, all of that.
Exactly. And it's hard. Some trainers, especially, youth, there's a lot of stuff wasted on the youth. And I'm certainly, when I was young, I was lucky to have some mentors that put me in my place a few times about things like leaving water in the well and doing things like that, and I would think about it. I probably wouldn't take it very well that day they told me, but after a few days, it would make a whole lot of sense. But I think that a lot of trainers, and not just cutting trainers, but a lot of trainers aren't real true horsemen. And to be a horseman, you have to look at the big picture, and it's not all on the horse's back. And a lot of it is how they feel, taking care of their trust. And they don't get all of that. You can't do all of that in 15 or 20 minutes when somebody hands you a horse that's already saddled, loped, and bitted up, and here you go. Here's, work the horse 15 minutes so I can give you another one. You miss so much. I don't know how they form that great of a partnership with missing all that. And there's certainly trainers that do all of that and just as much as I'm talking about, and probably more. But there's some that just kind of, they just, oh yeah, that's fine. But my girlfriend or my wife or my helper does all that. And so I can concentrate on riding. Well, I think it's too bad. I think they sell themselves short doing that.
I love hearing that. I'm not going to pretend like I know what it's like to be a horse trainer that has 40 horses in training, because I've never done that. That's never been my profession. But when I go to the barn every day, it's not just what I'm doing in the saddle. It's, how is my horse responding when I'm brushing her? Is her back sore? Is her, is there something going on? I'm checking her hay every day, making sure her water bucket is, clean and that she's drinking out of it. And I just feel like I want to know, like, if my horse flicks her ear to the left, I want to know what that means. And it's just so refreshing to hear someone at your caliber that has, that love for it and that passion for it, even, throughout all these years. And it's still as big a deal as it was when you first started as it is now, to know that and to know your horse and to know everything about it, whether it's the nutrition and working with Purina or working with your vets. And I mean, all of it. It just shows. I love talking to horse trainers, and it's always great to talk to the ones that are winning, but I'd really love to talk to the horsemen and women who truly know what their horses are doing.
Right. And it takes a village, and you're silly not to employ as many good minds as you can in order to make your program the most successful it can be. But, at the end of the day, it's up to you. You're responsible in order to coordinate all that to make it all work and have your horses the best condition, the happiest, healthiest, and trained well, so they're eager to perform, because I want them to be eager. I don't want them to dread it.
So you have obviously, I'm sure, inspired so many people in the industry, and so many people aspire to be have a career like yours, what's some advice that you would give someone who's looking to just get started just as a horse trainer, not necessarily just a cutting trainer? You know, what is something that you would want them to know?
Well, I would say the best way, you know, is to go to work for somebody to get the experience, but pick your poison, you know, pick the right person that has a good track record. Their horses look good. They're competitive. They don't have to win every time. I mean, cutting is an Olympic bicyclist told me this once. He said, I've never seen a sport with so many ways to lose. And I thought about it and I thought, well, that's really true, because I mean, you're working with 4 helpers. You're working with a cow's mind. We profess to be able to read a cow's mind, which is a little, you know, that's kind of a reach. And that's what we depend on for our livelihood. But there's so many variables. There's the ground. There's, you know, the draw, where you drew in the order. You know, in a reining horse draw, I mean, it matters a little bit, I guess, because it matters how the ground is or something. But in cutting, you know, when you have a herd of 60 head of cattle in there and there's 14 people in front of you, and 14 of them have worked 3 cows apiece, and they brought those cattle out, you know, 75 times before you get in there, those cattle change a lot. And you've got to memorize all those cows that have been cut and try to remember the ones that are still fresh in order to, you know, so you have as good a chance as you can to show your horse. And, you know, it's difficult. So there's a lot of variables. And so the ones I can control, I darn sure try to control them, like nutrition, like conditioning, like preparation, and for myself as well, you know, so I'm prepared correctly. I'm watching the cattle. I have good help. They're watching the cows. So we confer and make our best choice about, you know, the cattle that are available left in the herd, you know, which ones I'm going to try to cut. So it's, you know, there's a lot to it.
There's so much to it. And just being able to learn, I still like, when I watch the cutting and they're all taking their notes and studying the cattle, and it's such a skill to even be able to go and pick one out of the herd and cut it away from the rest. And I just have, you know, that is such a talent, and to be able to do it and not, you know, excite the herd or not, you know, excite your horse or whatever. It's such a skill. And I'm sure it took years and years to really kind of master that art.
Well, yeah, and again, because of the variables, I'm on a red baldy, and that's the cow I want. It's a fresh cow. All these others haven't looked great to me that are rolling around, but all of a sudden the red baldy sticks it and goes the other way or throws a tail over her head. You know, I've got to be smart enough to be able to step across and do something else with another cow, even though it wasn't my first choice, you know. Best laid plans can go awry pretty darn quick in the cutting pen, let alone with most equine disciplines. But in the cutting, when you put 60 head of cows in there, you're adding to the cluster quite a bit.
All right, couldn't find the unmute button. Oh, go ahead, Nicole. What were you going to say? I was just going to say thank you so much for coming on today and talking with us. It's honestly been such an honor having you on and getting to hear your story. So, but before we let you go, where can our listeners find you online and on social media if they want to follow along with you in your incredible career?
Where do they find me?
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, you're going to really laugh. It's not going to come as a big surprise, but I'm really not that technologically advanced. But I think people follow Instagram on me, right? Is that right? And I'm on Facebook, but I think Instagram is a way, or my website. I have a website. Or they can call me up. So
we love it. No, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, I love talking to people like you who are just, you know, trailblazers in the industry. And, you know, I just love getting to learn more about how you became the person you are and your love for horses. It sounds like, you know, that's been the number one thing that keeps you going all these years. And it's just so refreshing to hear and learn more about.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. You guys ask great questions.
Thank you.
Good at what you do. I always respect that.
Thank you guys for tuning into the Ride Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and please be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow Horse and Rider Magazine on social media and find us at horseandrider.com.
If you guys have any questions or comments, please be sure to hit us up at horseandrider@equinenetwork.com. We want to hear from you guys.
And if you like what you're listening to, be sure to leave us a review on iTunes.